Thank you. Yeah, okay. Thank you everybody for joining today. We are getting close to the end of our task force. So probably just tonight and then next month, if we need next month. And then we'll, at that point, in hopefully December, present our recommendations to the Housing Commission. So I don't know if you all saw, I know it was just today, but I sent over the draft recommendations that we were working on last month. And then Alex had gotten a response from staff. So thanks, Alex, about some of the recommendations. And then Kellen, since then, has started working on a slightly revised version of the recommendations, but I'd love to chat with you all about that. Who here has read the staff response? Okay. Okay, thanks.
Lance.
So yeah, basically the staff response, hi Alice, good to see you. The staff response was generally saying that they were already doing the things that we recommend. However, you know, Kellen and I were talking and we were thinking maybe we could phrase it in a way that's explaining like what is missing. You know, they are doing a lot of great work and that's awesome. But you know, we're here to help them to make recommendations on how they can get even better and reach more people who are not being heard from. So, you know, Kellen recommended maybe writing a problem statement next to each recommendation of like, what is the existing problem or the gap that needs to be filled. Kellen, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think with any recommendation, you have to tell them why, like, what is the problem we're trying to solve with this? Why, otherwise, why change? But I think with the staff responses too, we have to be very specific. And I think the recommendations were a little bit broader than they probably should be. Because if you just say, like, you should do tabling at community events, staff is going to be like, yeah, we do that.
Right.
Well, what we really mean is like there's a either certain type of events that we think are being missed or like a certain type of tabling that we don't think they're doing. And like we need to get that specific so that staff goes, oh, okay, it's not just tabling because we do that. You mean this specific gap is not being addressed and that's what you're trying to draw our attention to. And so, yeah, and I think there's more, and I've been adding some additional like suggested like bullet point, like additional recommendations and things. And I think there's more that I'd like to discuss with folks. Like, and I apologize that I wasn't able to make the previous meetings where we're doing the brainstorming because my feedback probably would have been really helpful then, as opposed to now after, you know, we've already developed the drafts. But I definitely think there's more we could include here and more specificity. But we also should be using all the feedback that we've gotten to let them know, here's the problem. Like, here's what we're trying to solve with this whole effort.
Thanks, Kellen. And I think that's okay. We're still in draft. We can still add things. Yeah. Karen.
I totally agree with Kellen. I would also, I do think we need to be more specific. I mean, for example, I don't know, are we going to go through each one by one? Is that how we're going to do it?
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
So for the first one, I think that we need to make it clearer to staff or whatever that not enough tenants are engaged in this in the SPRC. I mean, we're not getting the engagement that we need, that we want, as we've all noticed. So I don't know, is that the problem that you're, for example, suggesting, Kellen?
Yeah, so if you look, and I just put the Google Doc link in the chat. So if you look under the recommendations that you all had come up with before, I created a revised version, and that's what I started making changes to underneath it. And so you'll see there is a problem statement for this first one, and it specifically zeroes in on tenants are not included in the process, and I've added some additional recommendations around what I think could be done to help with that. Do you guys see that?
Say in other words, Karen, you are right on track with what Helen was thinking. It's exactly that. which is great.
Yes, I was also thinking that was the problem because we had that we had that situation a couple times during the housing commission meetings. That the tenants at, I can't remember which project it was, just were not consulted.
Mm. Yeah, if we have an example of a specific project or specific projects, I think that'll be kind of beef up even
Was it
more.
the Inn of Roslyn?
It was Troy Street, and I'm trying to think. It was the Wakefield Manor like parking lot redevelopment, which I think is stalled anyways. I think they've like paused the redevelopment for that, but that was one that I was on the SBRC, and I was really upset that there were no tenants represented on the committee, and staff's response was, well, there's no tenant organization for us to pick from, so we just, we did some outreach to the tenants, but they're not represented today because there was no structure for us to pull from. And I was like, you can't do that. You can't have the condos across the street represented, but not the people in the actual building that's losing their parking lot because it's hard. Like, we have to do better than that.
Definitely. Do you know of like that was what staff said, is like, oh, it's too hard to reach out if there's no tenant association, like, or it's too hard to pick people to be on this committee. Like, what could be our response to that? Like, what should we ask them to do besides distribute flyers? Like tabling, like, yeah.
Just like Katie, good point, and I agree with Kellen. I read these things, and I know this is being recorded, but I said it was laughable, and it was predictable and then I said, well, why'd we even do it? All right, so I think the approach of doing it, yes, they're going to say they're doing it, but they're not doing it well. They're not doing it well, and they can do better. And one of the things that struck me is I went to Arlington Village and had a nice 2-hour meeting with Wendy Zenger, who's taking care of the senior citizens in our community who are kind of the forgotten class. And she goes, the seniors don't care about this stuff. They're not going to go on the website. But she told me about the Langston Boulevard meetings and stuff like that. She goes, they did get involved when they saw things on telephone poles. The county says we're putting it on the web, we're putting it on these marquees. These people aren't going to look at them, but they will look at a lost cat on a telephone pole. All right. So why don't they do unconventional things by putting on a telephone pole, or putting on, just like the political people put those little yard signs in the boulevards, do stuff like that. If there's a community meeting in the area, they should advertise it that way. All right, everyone since COVID is using the web and stuff like that, but they may want to go back to the future and use some of the old-fashioned methods.
And I think they are doing a lot of that, Joe. The A-frame things we talked about at the last meeting, they do seem to be trying to go places, but it's good, especially because this is going to be SPRC. Like, I'm hoping it'll be part of, once the recommendation is like, okay, SPRC, this is what we recommend for you. Like, is someone going to make sure some of this stuff happens so that a low-income person, most especially within some radius of the situation, is on there.
So it says the SPRC chair gets to pick the people. All right. Now, that's interesting. All right. So I would, that would give me pause a little bit. All right.
It is a question, who gets to choose.
Yeah.
Well,
right?
it's also, I think it's not a real answer to be like, well, it's up to them. We'll change the process. Like that. It's not, the county has given the authority to the planning commission to do it the way they're doing it. They can change it if there's a better way to do it. I felt like that was kind of a cop out, and I'm not trying to drag on staff because they're pulled in many different directions and they're trying to do the best they can with the resources they have. But it's our job to help them figure out how things can be done better. And if they need more resources to do it, we go to the county board and we say, staff need more resources to do this. So that's the caveat, not trying to drag on them. But I felt like that was like, well, that's the process. What can we do? It's like, well, we can change the process to make it better. And we can change who decides who's on these committees if that's a problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And welcome to Kiddis. Thanks for joining us. We're just looking at the draft recommendations that I sent out over email. And then so Michael, you have your hand raised.
I had.
Thank you. Hi,
Yes.
everyone. I'm sorry. I was late. Hi, how are you? Thank you.
One is just my response, my initial reaction, because I did open it and scan. I'm like, yes, we already do this. Like, okay, defensiveness. Which actually leads me to potentially changing a little of the language, slight changes like committee should do, to being part of the process includes, and take out the shoulds, just because that's a triggering word for many of us. And it's a minor thing, but I like to think it does make a difference. And Kellen, I think your idea of like, here's what the problem is, and here is how we're trying to address it. And, in order to address this problem, here are recommendations. And I think I like that. Can I ask, because I don't see where it says the committee chair selects who? Is that, I don't see that language there. Is that something else that people just know?
Helen, had you read that off the SPRC
Oh,
description or?
I'll read it. The chair of the site planning committee, which is a member of the planning commission, ultimately determines who is on the SPRC roster for any given project. First sentence, second paragraph.
Right. Okay. It's a staff response. I got you. Thank you. I followed you. Which, yeah, I'm going back to whoever said cop out. Like, okay, so that's what they do. Okay. Yeah. And I'm happy to throw stuff at staff, having been a staff for 27 years. Like, come on, do better. Do better.
Alex?
I was just gonna give a suggestion to follow up on Michael's, that, if we had a problem statement and then we had some bullet solutions, we could start with the verb, like ensure that a lower income renter from the immediate area is, a member of the committee, whatever, the sandwich boards and the whatever we're going to put there. But if you start with the verb, then you don't have to use should if you don't. That might be a way.
That's a good idea. And I can go in afterward and revise like just how it's phrased, just to make it like active like that. Yeah. So, okay, so it looks like we're talking about the first one already. So can everyone see that, by the way? Can anyone not see the Google Doc? Should I share screen maybe? So everyone can see it? Okay. Give me 1 second.
I just threw one in there. And because when I think, and going back to the staff response about, well, there's no tenant association. Well, you know what? These buildings have a property manager, and there's a form of communication, and, we have that. And so,
Exactly.
Partnering with property management, they have communication methods. And here, what's the best way to get these to your residents? Is it posting one on every floor, or is it electronic that you send out through what do they call it, Resident Connect or whatever? They do that. So
I think additionally, and this is one that I added, supporting the formation of tenant association or councils at properties that will be redeveloped or directly impacted by development plans. So staff can work with like Bugada or other tenant organizing groups and say, can we form a temporary, for like a year, tenant organization that we can engage with on issues related to they can set that up. They don't have to just be like, well, one doesn't already exist, so there's nothing we can do. Like, these happen organically. They can happen, I don't want to say inorganically, but they can happen because the county says we need a tenant organization at this property. So we're going to have organizers who are experts at working with communities to set up, tenant councils or associations. They can have them set one up specifically to engage on the redevelopment and tenant concerns during that process. Like, that's something we can do that requires resources, that requires a commitment to doing that. But yeah, that's definitely something we could do. If it doesn't exist, we could have it exist. And that
you know what else?
asked about that.
We seem to be focusing on one person to be on the committee, which is crucial. And we could, in some of this outreach, like a lot of people should be knowing what's happening right in their neighborhood, and many won't. So there could be two, goals of the outreach. One is to identify someone who would be willing to participate and maybe needs, support or even reimbursement to do that. Also, folks on a, much larger scale would want to know what, potential construction and things like that will be coming. Another way, like Michael said, was through all their property management communications. They would want to be letting people in their building know something's happening nearby anyways,
Mm,
Has anyone gone through Arlington Neighborhood College?
yes.
Do they talk about like the SPRC process, and they talk about like the planning commission and like how land use decisions are made and how people can participate as part of that?
To be honest, I don't remember. I'm not sure.
Because I think that's another existing avenue. It's like this is a big part of what county government does is land use decision making. If it's not, that should be a part of our already existing county, like, civic training program. And I would say they should heavily focus on recruiting and paying people to be there who are low income, to make sure that they're also getting to learn and experience that.
Yeah.
I added the one on here about compensating low income tenants or homeowners. And for homeowners, I have like, your low income elderly homeowners on fixed incomes, for their time so they can, fully and meaningfully participate in SPRC meetings and activities.
That's great. Yeah, these are all really good ideas. Thank you. So the neighborhood college one, that might be a separate bullet. And I think I'll need to reach out to, I still have the contact of the person who runs it, so I can ask them, like, is that part of the curriculum? And if not, we can include that as a recommendation if you guys are interested. And then for the like info sessions, I think that Alice mentioned, I think I'm wondering if we should specifically mention that as part of whether it's the property management bullet or just a separate bullet about keeping ways to keep residents informed, even if they're not on the site plan committee. Like maybe I can say such as those
And Karen has her hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't see anyone.
No, it's okay. I don't know that you can compensate people for these type of meetings. Maybe you can give them a gift card, but I don't think you can compensate them.
I mean, the board would have to like establish that as a thing, but you can't, because you can pay commissioners, you can pay, all the other localities pay their planning commissioners. We don't in Arlington, but they could if they wanted to, and you could pay someone to participate in something like an SPRC.
I would double check. Well, maybe somebody can check on that. I don't think that you can do that. You'd have to change a lot of stuff to get to provide compensation. So at the end of the day, yeah.
And I think, Karen, with that is like, we're telling them what they should do. We're not telling them what they can do today. Like if that requires that they go to the General Assembly and they get legislation to allow them to do it, but that's what's best for our community, then that's what we recommend. Like, I don't think we should stop ourselves because, I mean, we should try to identify barriers to doing the things that we're recommending. Like we understand that this would require yada, yada, yada. But for any of the ideas, I would rather have people say, I think that's a bad idea rather than I don't think they can do that currently, as far as a reason not to propose it. But sorry.
Or hope they figure out a method, right? Because like, let's say Board of Equalization, there are groups that advise the county that at this point are paid people. So, and I feel like it's possible that that they've done that kind of thing before, like provided like a taxi voucher and different things for people to be able to participate. So I don't think it's common, you know, I think you're right about that, but I think there are ways, and hopefully they can get creative and figure that out. So
I do think one thing is, you know, providing people transportation and giving them a gift card. Another thing is paying people. That's sort of
you're just
what
saying that they get a paycheck type thing from the county, or
that gets really complicated, but you can give
right.
somebody like a voucher so that they get transportation, or they get a gift card to go to Target or something weird.
Mhm.
But you can't like pay people, and then you change the whole structure of our commissions then, which is a whole nother ball game. But maybe we want to do that anyways. I don't know.
I mean, I think we should be paying low income people to participate, because I think it is unrealistic for us as a community to say we want low income people to fully participate in all this civic life, knowing that they can't afford to do it because they have other obligations to make ends meet. Like, those two things can't both be true. So we have to make a decision of, if we really want low income people to be fully invested in the community and participating, we probably have to compensate them for that. And I agree, it's different and it's probably complicated, but I do think the county should be doing that.
And let them figure it out, right?
Yeah, if Karen, if you think that's just a bad idea, I definitely want to know that, versus you think that that would be very complicated and like difficult for the county to do.
I also think it's a little bit of a bad idea. I think feeding people, giving them transportation could be an
Totally
incentive.
agree.
But like actually paying them, you're kind of wondering, are they just there to get paid, or are they there because they want to make a change?
Helen, and I got to excuse myself for a quick second. I think the optics are not good. I think for parking expense travel, it's fine. But there's a history of this at the federal level, which I don't want to get into, but I just think it's the optics would be bad, but I think it's prudent for travel expenses and stuff like that. And I leave it at that. So I fully agree with Karen.
I don't disagree on the optics. I'll offer a different optic of we're talking about people whose time is incredibly precious, and it's a very limited resource. And when you're working multiple jobs or jobs that pay very low incomes, then we're not necessarily honoring time that they're taking away to do this. And I'm not saying, other people like me, I've got a decent income, I am solid upper middle class, um, do I need any sort of compensation or stipend? No. This is a model that is used in many housing organizations, low income housing, where, residents who take on sort of these volunteer roles, and it may be different when we're talking, and Karen, I agree, and Joe with the optics too, but when you bring a county in and county and taxpayer funds, it's a different thing. But it is something that recognized across the housing industry, at least, that we are asking them to do important work for themselves and their neighbors, and for us, honestly. So it's not an awful thing. I think the practicality of it is, and the two pieces that you're bringing, some of the practicality is like, is it doable? And Joe, yours, I can see people making hay of this. And so that's a real thing. So I don't have an answer. I'm inclined to say, let's put it on there and let them figure it out. These are recommendations. And I think we're spending, if I may offer process wise, we're spending a lot of time talking about this, and we have other things to talk about. Like, unless and two of you have said pretty strongly, yeah, I don't think it's a good idea. Are you comfortable with putting it in as a recommendation, or are you, Joe, you go ahead and come on, Mike. Can't hear you.
I would leave it vague, look at appropriate compensation or whatever, or something like that, but nothing, they should be paid an hourly rate to participate. But I would just say appropriate compensation of of whatever. I mean, and I do know the planning commission is a different thing, and that's been an issue. Fairfax pays them. These people spend a lot of time there, a lot of work and stuff like that. But a site plan review is basically like a focus group. And you can get paid for focus groups. Focus groups, you get Amazon card or stuff like that. So I'm almost talking myself out of it because I've been on focus groups, so I've been paid for it. But that's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? This is you're dealing with some of these design housing developments get a little bit hotsy-totsy and controversial, and they're saying here the county is paying people to you know what I'm saying. Enough said. Thank you.
Thanks for that. Alice?
I just wanted to ask Kidditz, you look like you were ready to say something. Did you want to share your thoughts?
I learn. One thing what it come in my mind is the DACA process. DACA, they give a training for different people for housing. And that time, maybe they got within a day, thousands people, like 500, sometimes 700 people. They give a material with a question and they give some training about housing. I think that kind of service will be a good help to bring our community's thought or our community's message or to empower the community. That is the one thing what I have in my mind. Thank you.
And Kiddis, what was that you said? DACA?
Yeah, there is a program once DACA, NACA with N.
What does it stand for? Do you know? Is that the neighborhood college? No.
No, it's not. It's a housing program in DC, Maryland, Virginia, and other states too. This is a housing program for empower, like people when before they own the house, they have a training for housing. So I will check the name and I will post here.
Thank you.
No
That's
problem.
great. Thank you. Good idea.
Yeah, that I know we do need to move on. I think that we can just, like Michael said, explore options, let them decide. But I mean, you guys, I was on the housing commission for like, I don't know, a dozen or something number of years. I can't remember, but there were times when my husband had to work late or was out of town and we had kids. I literally had to pay a babysitter to go be on the housing commission that night. It's like crazy, you know, $50 or something just to be able to go. Other people cannot do it. I didn't want to do that, you know, like we were living on one income, but I think that the childcare, if nothing else, is a really big concern. So I think it's a special category. I feel like I've heard the county talking about this kind of thing in other contexts before. So if they're not doing it yet, it's time to at least, you know, do a deep exploration about what would or wouldn't be feasible, because we're not going to get the people that we want to hear from because they just can't make that work. So my opinion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Alice. And you know, that does make me think of for the comprehensive plan, how the county is hiring like ambassadors to be, you know, reaching out to their communities like part-time. So I just want to ask from you all, like, are you all okay with us saying explore compensation options for low-income residents to participate in SPRC committees and other maybe like time intensive like outreach or you know engagement? Okay. Yeah, we're seeing some yeses. Okay, perfect. Kellen, would you mind just editing that in the document while we move on?
I think
Sure.
it's already in there.
Okay, but just the language to be like,
I hit
like
take a look in the chat. Sorry, take a look in the chat because
did you already put it in the chat? I'm sorry, I missed it.
ruined some language.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Okay, we can, yeah.
Is that working?
And I think you're saying here, Michael, you're saying neighborhood college, which I think is also a good idea, but I think we were also thinking this SPRC committee.
Yeah, let me rephrase that. You're right, because I was adding that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think more broadly, the county should just look at compensation for low-income people participating in commissions, in SPRC for whatever we want low income people to participate in. We should look at,
Yeah,
should
that's
we
true.
be compensating them? What does that look like? I think that is an important thing to do, because, you know, we don't have a lot of low income people on the housing commission. Like there's not a lot of people who can make that commitment and give up that time for across the county for a lot of things. And we say we want it, but then we're only willing to do so much to make it happen and make it easy for people. So
Yeah, well,
I
I
think
mean,
exploring that
equity,
makes sense.
right? Equity is about lowering barriers to participation. So we have to look at different populations. What are the barriers? You know, we know time, energy, money, those are barriers. So, and for some, they're huge barriers. So I think it's very appropriate with us trying to be a more equitable county, you know, so we can leave the specifics up to them.
Yeah, no, this is a great discussion. Thanks. Yeah, so I'm thinking we can move on to the next one. You know, I know this, and we may not get through everything today, but are you guys okay with if we just get through as far as we can and then pick it back up next month? Okay, great. That way we have time to kind of talk about each one. So the next one is tabling. So we're asking county staff to continue and expand targeted pop-up tabling at events or sites to hear from historically marginalized groups about housing policies. Then we listed a bunch of different example places they could do this, like Barcroft, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that the county staff response was that, you know, we're already doing pop-up tabling, which is great. I think we need to be more, maybe like Helen said, specific about where we think they should do more tabling and why this is a problem that there's not enough tabling. I guess what we heard a lot in doing the survey and the listening sessions is that people will, you know, respond the most if someone is actually there in person talking to them, explaining what's going on, instead of them just getting an email or seeing a flyer or something. Because I mean, yeah, actually, like nobody filled out the survey from the flyer. A bunch of people, we gave them the flyer, and we also sent it out over email to a bunch of people, and nobody filled it out from that. Everyone filled it out when we talked to them in person and gave them the survey on paper and made them fill it out. So that's just an example how tabling. And then a lot of people said, you know, the way that's most effective for you to communicate with me is to come in person to either my building or somewhere near me and talk to me. So that could be part of our problem statement. Any thoughts about what we could add there, or how to make this more specific?
And I'm reading the staff response, and I still feel this defensiveness from them, but can they demonstrate, you know, that those efforts, when I look at, you know, we went to Megamart, we hang around Arlingtonville, all these things, can they demonstrate numbers? I mean, I don't know if they're counting that. It'd be great. And if they're doing that and they're getting numbers, then you know, God bless them, keep going, you know. As someone who does tabling, I have experienced seeing people who sit at a table and they show up and they're there. And sometimes people walk by and talk to them, sometimes don't. And you know, there are also people who are, you know, they're up and at this. I have caught people tabling. So you know, there's tabling and there's tabling. But I am curious. I would like to know more about, you know, can they demonstrate that these have been effective? Is there a way to go back? And maybe this is part of the recommendation, is, you know, evaluate some of these outreach strategies that you've used.
Sorry, could everyone mute if you're not talking?
Alice, I think you're on mute. I don't know if the noise is coming from you or from Michael, but
it's not me. I'm alone.
Alice, can you mute?
Sorry about that.
There they are. Yeah, that was you. Okay. Your family. Anyhow, that was my.
They're all saying goodbye. Sorry about that.
Oh.
It's all good.
Tell them goodbye for us. Yeah, it would be interesting for them to give us, you know, have they done a reasonable evaluation of their outreach techniques? And I don't mean just, yeah, we got these numbers. No, have you increased? Has it led to, further, what's the impact of the outreach?
Yeah, definitely. Karen.
I have been to housing events with the county, and I would say that they do a good job of tabling. But those are specific housing events. And they keep a list of people that they talk to, and they give out brochures, and they do talk to people because then they send people to me too. So I would say specific housing events, I think they do a good job. The other ones, I don't know.
And I think my question for this too would be, what types of issues are we talking about? Like I've seen them out, like they were at Green Valley Day talking about the comprehensive plan, and they had the stickies up and they said, tell us what are your major like housing needs. And I think that was good. That was good engagement. I don't see them doing that for site plans. I don't see them doing that for housing grant, review and changes and things like, so I don't know what things they table for and what things they don't. And so my critique is not really like the tabling that I've seen. I think they do, Karen, to your point, they do a good job. They try to be pretty engaging. Granted, I'm not low income. I'm not, well, I don't have an income right now. So, but like, historically, but yeah, I guess are there specific areas of housing policy and planning that we think here's where you should be doing tabling and you're not? Because the big things, I think they are doing it, but there may be areas where they're missing that. Or did from the survey where people just like, I don't see them anywhere.
Yeah, no, great point. I think people that we talked to, over 50% said that they did not know that the county was looking for feedback on housing policies. So that means they've never seen the county, or that they weren't aware or remember ever seeing the county asking for feedback. And I think that number is higher among the renters who filled up versus the homeowners. So yeah, I think it might be a volume thing too, of just how much resources are you going to devote to tabling? And I know it is expensive to, hire people to go out and do that, but it is effective. So yeah, maybe we want to say like, even for the existing things that they do, like comprehensive plan, like maybe increase it and go to more sites, and maybe for the things that they're not doing it for, to start doing it, like site plans. What do you guys think?
Can we ask them for more information about when they table and when they don't?
Yeah.
See if we can get a sense of, because I would imagine their focus is like they go to, I think I saw the county too at Clarendon Day, like they're going to like festivals and events where they're going to engage with hopefully a lot of people, but they're probably not sitting outside a random apartment building, just like as residents coming out, hey, I want to talk to you about the county's housing, which if we were a tiny community could make sense, but not, for a community of what, 235,000 people. So to some extent, like, yeah, they can't ever hire enough people, but I think it would be helpful to know from them when do you table and when do you not?
Yeah, great question. I can reach out and ask them about that. Or maybe through Alex, we can coordinate. Yes, Alice.
I was just gonna say, like, I think they're gonna say if it's individual site plans, like they just cannot do that, So I think we're seeing them when it's, 10-year reviews and 5-year reviews of, larger documents, or, that whole Vision 2050 or whatever it was a couple of years ago. So there'll be certain endeavors. But I think what we're talking about here more specifically is that, well, maybe not, but one of them is the SPRC. So that would be like a little micro effort, right? Within some literally quarter mile of whatever the site is, to say, identify community gatherings or public spaces where people are that are close. Maybe it does end up being in front or in the lobby of, if we have a CAF building near there, or especially, for example, that's the one where it was so glaring to me when Marbella was being redeveloped, or when the SPRC for its redevelopment was happening. we had representatives from that town, 8 townhomes, but there were, scores of residents right in the not the ones who had to evacuate, but no, I mean, not to evacuate, but before they knocked it down. So the whole, some were preserved, I'm trying to say, but during SPRC, they were all still there. So there were plenty of people they could have focused in, the leasing office or something for a week. So in other words, we might need to be specific. What are we as housing, community engagement, rehousing asking? Are we asking for the tiny one, for an SPRC, and then asking what they do? Because I think they have been developing and expanding a lot of the bigger ones. Like we're saying, the tabling, the festivals, the, A-frame things or whatever. So I think we have to be careful because, like, what exactly are we asking them to do differently than they're doing now? So that was one. And then I was thinking about under, oh gosh, which section was it? Places, like examples where to go. I was going to suggest, there's a couple other communities that aren't really on here. We could talk about, like, ECDC is a group that might be, I think, is willing to, engage their folks. There's a whole Mongolian community. I think there are some community representatives. So we might want to be specific on groups that we know exist that are tapping into immigrant and other, maybe non-English speaking groups that would be especially important to try to tap into.
Thanks. Yeah, Kiddis, do you want to, you had your hand up, and I know you also are from ECDC, so you want to speak up?
Yeah. Let's say ECDC has a corner for a housing feedback corner. But, the question, let's say our client or our most of our community is immigrant and a newcomer. So even they don't, I mean, they read the question, but they do not even understand, So what kind of question we ask for immigrant, for newcomer, for what you call, for the other, let's say, low income housing or affordable housing residents. So our question is like the same for everyone. I think that's a little bit problem I saw on my communication with the communities. And then the other thing, they don't have information. I think Alice, she already explained about that. So these two things we have to fix and clear for the communities, and very easy. Let's say I have some translation in Amharic, and now it's based off the newcomers. Let's say now we have a lot of Afghans and Ukraine communities, but they are new, so that's why they cannot even answer our question.
Yeah.
But we have a corner housing feedback, Arlington housing feedback corner. So we can like check anytime when you come, I can show you. But there is no answer with the newcomers because they don't know. That's why. Thank you.
What about, so Kiddis, that got me thinking, what if the county sent, and don't jump on me because this is crazy, a welcome letter to new residents that laid out in Arlington, this is how we engage with you, and a link to a website where that has much more extensive information about, this is how to get involved and participate, and like we're going to be asking for your feedback in the future on housing things, and that's going to be over here. But like it's just a 1-page letter that directs you to like a website, because when you come to Arlington, you're going to register. I'm trying to think, like DMV, address change, that's state. I don't know how much of that is sent, to the county. Obviously, property tax, but if you're a renter, that's not going to apply to you directly. So I'm trying to think like
schools.
Schools, yeah. I mean, but something where the county, they're going to be notified you have a new resident, someone has moved here. This letter goes out and it's welcome to Arlington. And we're so glad to have you. Here's how to participate in your community now, or here's how we like to engage with you. Obviously, that would need to be fleshed out more, but I feel like something like that could be helpful, especially for like immigrants and new people coming here, to just kind of give them the lowdown. And then if they're interested, they go in the link and they can check out the website and see all the different things. If they're not, at least they got a welcome letter and they're like, oh, that's cool. I've never gotten that when I moved to a new, locality or something. I don't know. Just throwing it out there.
I'm sorry to John. By the way, that's a good idea. Honestly, it's not because the for housing only, for the other department too. What I receive is I register for one of the client for a new business. She registered in our building. She rent very small office. When we register in Virginia business, the tax department from Arlington, they send her a letter within a week. So they already have the information about that. So I think that is a good idea to communicate with all newcomers, even it's not newcomer, immigrant or refugees. Even when you move from other state, we can catch them people when they register for ID. Thank you.
That's nice. Yeah, thanks. Joe?
Yeah, if they can afford to live here, I'm all for giving them a nice letter and rolling out the red carpet. Kim Klinger, and I forget the post she's in, she came to our civic association. Yeah, well, and she's got this spiel, welcome to Arlington and stuff like that. So that would be something her team would actually probably add to her pitch. And it's a pretty good pitch. They put on a pretty good 15-minute program. But I think it's a great idea, welcoming for people that are renting or owning here. And I think it's a great idea. And this is how you get engaged. At least we're making the effort. I live in a condo. We're trying to get people engaged here, and it's hard to get people engaged. So with, a new broom sweeps clean. That's an old expression. So if you get a new person in here, give them something welcoming and whatever with good information, it's pretty good from their
That's great.
government. So.
Yeah. Kittist, you had mentioned that people may not understand what they're being asked, which I think makes sense. Even sometimes I don't understand, like, what's an SPRC, like what's a site plan, what's what do these things mean, right? So I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on like what would help people. What do people need to be able to understand? Do they need someone to actually explain it to them from the county? Do they need to have someone from ECDC explain it to them? Do they just need something better that's written? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, if we like working together and if we have someone like I am in ACDC and the other department, if we have some people, they give that information for them. And the other thing is we have to have sometimes like a Zoom training for different people. Zoom training is make a lot of different or video trainings, and we can post on YouTube and we can reach a lot of people. That's what I have.
Thanks. When you say Zoom training, do you mean Zoom training for the actual residents, or do you mean Zoom training for the sort of nonprofit partners to then explain it to the residents?
If we announce people, they are coming from different, if they have interest, people, they come to listen, so that's.
Yes. Okay, so for everyone, yeah.
Thank you.
I just saw some things in the chat, which was Michael said that we ran into an issue when during the surveys that people didn't understand what we're talking about. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I think it does
exactly.
require some explanation. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, it was just that we're talking to people about how to give feedback on something about giving feedback, and it's just kind of it's a little esoteric in a way, and it's
Right.
way out here,
Mhm.
which is another
Definitely.
reason.
Yeah, Joe.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Michael, thanks for waking me up. Michael and I did Hunter's Ridge, the senior citizens facility there, and they, they liked us being there because they're bored and we were new people to talk to, but they didn't know what the problem was. All right, because what you don't know, you don't know. And I said, well, aren't you concerned with that big project down the street at Walgreens? They said, where's Walgreens? They didn't know about it. So the thing is, and I did a one-off with Katie, senior citizens is one of my soft spots because 55 years ago at HUD, I ran a senior citizens program. So I really think in addition, I would, and I just want senior citizens written somewhere in this document because they are kind of the forgotten people over here, and they don't look for things that, they're just existing, and some of them are housed, some of them aren't, and stuff like that. But in addition to Hunter's Ridge, I personally interviewed Wendy Zenker at Arlington Neighborhood Village, and she's keeping people in their homes, which is a good thing, and that's what we should be doing and stuff like that. So, but they were participating. She told me about Langston Boulevard. She goes, they saw it on the flagpole, and that's when they got involved. But they don't look at the county website and stuff like that. So the bottom line is we have to speak in plain English. Site Plan Review Committee, they're not going to know what it is. They don't know what a the CFR. It's got to be written down. When I was in the government, we had to write third grade language. It's got to be written for kindergarten. All right. This is a review committee where it's just got to be dummied down.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I think related to that, I think it's important to kind of connect the dots for people too about how does building a new buildings or just building more housing, how does that help them by making the rents not go up so much? Things like, having more housing supply overall will help the prices not go up so much, but that needs to be explained to people too, because otherwise people might just be like, why should I care about housing going up or not? Or maybe they'll just oppose it. So that's kind of a bigger kind of thing for training. And Joe, to your point about seniors, thanks for bringing that up. Maybe we could mention in terms of outreach for ideas of places to do outreach, we can mention senior, or however you call it, like senior residences, like
we have senior centers. The county also has senior
centers,
centers
yeah.
and stuff like that. So the residences, senior centers, et cetera, and stuff like that, there should be outreach to them also.
Yeah. Yes. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
No, Alice and I were chatting in the chat, and she said something about, for new CAF residents to be having some information. And it's literally just today I was looking at, we're doing pre-discussions and thinking for budget 2026. And one of the initiatives we have is we've been started welcome baskets, and I'm looking at, and just went to, I think last week, where they have a welcome process, and it's over 8 months. And part of that could include, here's some education about places you could be involved or engaged in your local community around housing or other things. But it's not all coming that first week you're in your new property. It's coming over time. And so as I'm thinking about this could be part of it. And I mean, it's a push. It's something we're actively working to do with our residents. So I'm like, it's fun when I get to connect things in my head that I don't have connected previously.
Great. Okay. Okay, in terms of writing this down of what we were just discussing, we had mentioned a welcome letter for new residents.
I already added it to the document.
You already added. Thank you. That's perfect. Okay. Sorry, it's just hard for me to keep up with both at the same time, so I appreciate that.
Also, real quick, do not put stuff in the chat. You need to speak because this is being recorded and we cannot share the chat. Kellen put that in the chat, but
Got it.
Thank you
Got
for
it.
that.
Yeah.
But Kellen, you're capturing a few things that we have put in the chat so far, I think. Is that right?
I captured the welcome letter, and then I captured your thought on it should just like maybe we start with CAF residents, as like a pilot or something for it. I didn't capture some of the other discussion. But if other people, since we all have the Google Doc, like people can just add stuff to it. And I think, Katie, we can try to refine that for the next meeting and hopefully, vote on a final then. But I think if people, that is a good place to share your thoughts. But we also need to speak them out loud so it's captured in the meeting as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Thanks for that. Okay, so it sounds like we did, talk a decent amount about, the need to have more in-person engagement and what that might look like, and different, and then we also touched on the aspect of more training and more plain language and more helping people understand, and doing it in a way that's accessible to people. So I think that is the part that, I'm sorry, Kellen, where did you put, oh, you put the Welcome Arlington letter at the bottom. I see that. And then in terms of like a training, I'm wondering if we should put that in its own bullet or if that can kind of be slotted into one of these existing.
I would just add it as its own bullet for now, and we can like clean it.
Yeah.
Because I think what may end up happening, Katie, is we may end up grouping some of these together under the same problem. So we'll create like a problem statement and then realize that like multiple bullets that already existed, oh, that's really addressing the same problem, but they're just
Yeah.
different ways to like approach it.
Definitely. Okay. That sounds good. Yeah, could either one of you who's been typing, can you write something about the training and how people need training to understand housing policies, what they mean, like how it will impact them, that sort of thing. Yeah, Kellen, thank you. Okay. Great. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. I think we're scheduled till 8:30. Is that hopefully good with everybody? Okay, great. So the next one we had written was continue and expand partnerships with community organizations to be trusted messengers about county updates and to gather feedback, such as Bugata, resident services at CAF properties, nonprofits, or congregations. And then I think in response, this county staff said that they already, have this close relationship with Bugata and affordable housing providers, and they work with them to share messaging and create engagement opportunities. And they also have done some initiatives around like faith congregations. They also will sometimes reach out individually to nonprofits to help them spread awareness. Yeah, so they are doing some of this, it looks like, but anyone have thoughts? It looks like two people have thoughts about how we can like phrase this. Yeah, Kellen, go ahead.
Yeah, it's more a question. So like what is the specific issue we're trying to address? Because I agree the county does this in some form, but like what do we feel like they're missing? Like what's not happening that we feel like should be happening? Is it certain organizations we think they should be partnering with that they're not? I mean, Bugata, they have a contract with Bugata. Like they work with Bugata all the time. Is there something we think they should be doing with Bugata that they're not currently doing with them? Like what were we trying to, unless this is just we think this is good, you're already doing it, you should keep doing it. Is it that, or is it something specific that isn't happening or is being missed that we think they need to start doing?
Well, I had suggested the ECDC and, maybe identifying community leaders within the Mongolian community. I think there are groups that we aren't in great touch with as a county. We could do a better job there. And I definitely think we could cultivate better relationships and opportunities with congregations. And that I think those are great suggestions. I'm starting to wonder the way we're talking. It's like, that's what I was kind of putting in the chat. Like if we're maybe, like you said, problem statement, what activity is happening that isn't getting the feedback or input from less represented folks like SPRC, we suggest these things, a larger planning structure. So I think it sounds like we're making broad, lots of suggestions, but which one do they belong to? Like, I don't think it's realistic or necessary personally to have a welcome letter to everybody who enters Arlington to start explaining what is an SPRC and do they want to participate. Like, it's too much. So I think we have higher level for some things and then micro targeting for other things. And I've suggested to them before that, like, before an SPRC begins, literally begins at all, they would be identifying people within, like, let's say a quarter mile, whatever it is, a radius, notifying all of them and offering some a public education event right in the community to say this particular building might have X, Y, and Z happen. This is how these kinds of things work. And at this point, it's SPRC. This is what the SPRC will do. You are welcome to these meetings. I mean, if we truly want people to know, then I think there needs to be like a targeted activity like that within a community. The other suggestion I had was, people do come out for these meetings, especially people who are upset. So it might be helpful at the beginning of these meetings to take like 5 minutes and level set. Like I said, like, this is an SPRC. Here's who's on the committee. Here's who can talk and when. These are the objectives. Like, people don't understand the basics of the process. And they certainly don't understand, like, okay, they're looking to change the zoning right now. Then next time we see what happens, when the second letter comes through, like phase, the phases, the letters that they get, like, okay, if that happened, so just like an education that's very specific for the people who are actually participating in that. But then we have a broader one, it sounds like we're talking about just to inform people. So I think we need to, or maybe we don't need to talk about the broad one. I don't know, but I do think we need to kind of like be a little bit more specific or break it up into levels of participation, like countywide or neighborhood specific or whatever it is, depending on the goal for that community, the feedback we want from that, whether it's the whole community or a tiny community. So
I second.
Maybe that's what you're suggesting, Kellen, with the problem statement and the different bullets below.
I second what you're saying, Alice, in terms of, and I struggle myself, and particularly being new here, but it's, what specifically do we want input on? And when I see the response from the county and they are doing this sort of, we do this, but what is it we want? So Kellen, I appreciate your like insistence on this question, specifically, and I don't have that answer. One of the things I would throw in is, like, when they say that they partner with people like Uganda, True Ground, like, what about us? But the other piece to that is training us, training the staff. I am certain I could probably not name a single of our site teams who could tell you what any of the housing decisions are, or what that process is, or even, what do we discuss? They're social workers. They're wonderful, fabulous people. They have an amazing skill set and engagement in local, decision making is not part of what they do. So providing them some capacity to be able to build capacity in residents, I think is a great channel.
And like an effort like that would be too broad at every building for everyone. But what you're mentioning sounds perfect to me for when that building might be renovated, or a building right next door to it might be renovated, to hone in and explain to staff and residents so that staff can also help residents. That would be really cool. More doable too, like, I think this has to be targeted. We can't ask the county to be doing 1,000 things in every corner of the county. They're just going to say we can't do it,
Well, and in your building capacity, that's really where, and when I think about it from the perspective of my RESs, resident engagement specialist, or site folks, it's building their capacity. They're learning more, and then they are able to turn around and say, oh my gosh, this is happening.
And it's an empowerment.
Yes,
right? It's an empowerment.
County staff are doing.
Yeah, because at these particular buildings, if it were an effort on the part of resident services staff, we've talked about this, more generally in the past, but this idea that that's a way for staff to be identifying tenant leaders who want to participate. So if something happens in that neighborhood, boom, you might know who to go to, and or inviting them to speak at a commission meeting, be it virtual or whatever, come to a county board meeting. It starts to build towards who understands, who wants to participate, and then you can identify community leaders that way who would be able to bring a voice, to a broader audience, I guess.
I have two things. One is sort of response to one of the things you brought up, Alice, about people showing up at like commission meeting or SPRC and they don't know the process. They don't know like what they're doing like in that meeting and how they participate, like when it's public comment. Mm-hmm. What about having like a 2-minute video that's pre-recorded before every meeting and you just play it at the very start of the meeting and it lays out like how that works? Like this is very broad, like this is an SPRC. There's usually 2 of them and just very succinctly explains what's happening, and like public comments will be received in the beginning of the meeting. The chair will call on you, like something like that, and that way you don't have to have the chair like read like a long statement, which they hate doing. I always hate doing that, and people don't like to listen to it. And APS does more stuff, like they always have videos in their school board meetings. And I think that's something that the county doesn't do, but we probably could do for like SPRC and commission meetings, and just briefly set the stage for everyone who's tuned in to like, this is what this is how it's going to work tonight. And it's, you do it once and you use it for years, unless something, significant changes. Second point was, I know this was a big push with Serrano, and this was part of the Housing Commission's joint recommendations with TLC, but we were pushing the county to try and facilitate the development of resident councils and tenant associations at all CAF properties. And the county tried it with Barcroft, and they basically said, we worked with them and Bugatti worked with them for like 6 months. And we don't think that they're self-sustaining at this point, and so we're out. And they're like, we don't have any more resources dedicated to this. We thought they would just pick it up and run with it. And my response to that was, I don't know why you ever thought that your role was just to, help them organize real quick, and then you'd walk away. And a bunch of low-income tenants would be like, yeah, now that the county's had a couple meetings with us, we have all this energy and enthusiasm and time to just do this, and we've been fully trained, and now we got this, and we're just going to run. Like, that's not how tenant associations work. They require support forever. And the idea that we pitched was, you bring in Bugatti, you bring in other organizations that exist all around the United States that do this. That is their job, is to help organize tenants and help keep them going. In tenant association, resident councils, and the county basically said, we're not willing to put in the time and effort. I think we should re-propose that as part of this process, because to me, that is a key way to develop and empower low-income folks to be active and engaged in our communities, is to work on establishing resident councilors or tenant associations at our CAF properties. We have 11,000 some odd units. Imagine if all those properties had a resident council. Imagine the political force they would become in our community if they all were represented. And, it would be a game changer for lifting up the voice of low-income residents in our community. That would take money and hard work. And the county has to make a decision whether or not they ever want to invest in that. I think that we should make the recommendation we made 2021 or 2022 again, and say, hey, we still think this is important. We still think you should do it. And now we're just approaching it from a community engagement lens, as opposed to, quality of low income, subsidized unit lens.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's such an important way to kind of sustain engagement over time, and also get that training aspect, the leadership development. so that people are actually engaged. You know, Alice and I are part of Voice, and that's what, you know, community organizing. That's how I got involved in housing, was through that organized like organization, training people on like housing policies and stuff. So yeah, definitely. It sounds
And I
great.
really, you know, I've made these suggestions about the videos before. I think it's a great idea for us to put it in here, because they can partner, you know, they can make videos, they can partner with APS to make like it can happen. And I think it would be amazing. You know, we could even suggest to them which things are they, you know, introduction to this, a couple of the commissions, like planning in particular, so complicated, you know, basic stuff. This is a site plan. This is what happens during the site plan process. This is an SPRC, whatever it is, you know, like some big basic things that once they use them, they exist, you know, they can make those available and they can be on the website for people to look at, or for us to send around, you know. They could probably, you know, easily dub it or whatever, or do a second one in Spanish, or you know, there's a lot that could be done, hopefully not too expensive, that they would be willing to do, that would up the public education quickly, you know, a tool that's out there and accessible for us to show people, or people to get themselves. It's a lot better than trying to go community to community and, you know, every single meeting and all that. So I'm all for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Another thing to answer, Kellen, your earlier question about like what types of topics are we asking them to expand their outreach about? I think that's probably something we do want to try to, you know, name in this, because clearly we want to talk about site plans because that's something we've identified that's an issue. You know, I know the county is already doing engagement on comprehensive plans and area plans, but maybe they could do even more to engage marginalized people. But then also like the budget, like I don't know if they ever do outreach on like, and maybe they do, I just really don't know. Like, do they do outreach on like how much money are we going to include in the budget for housing grants and other housing sort of like AHIF even, or you know, and also like the whole maintenance thing, because that's when we did listening sessions, that was like the number one thing that came up for the CAF residents, was they're having concerns with maintenance and property management. And that's not something we always think about when we think about engagement, but and that might be where the resident councils tie in, but like are they engaging people proactively on like maintenance concerns in their apartments, both for CAF residents, but also for like market rate affordable residents who don't get, you know, that special connection that the CAF folks do. Yeah, Kellen.
One of the things I'd added in here as a recommendation is around, and I've talked about this in the Housing Commission, when we do sector plans and area plans, and we focus most of the community engagement on the people who currently live in the neighborhood, who most of the time are concerned with, how do I protect what I have? I'm not looking for new neighbors. I'm not looking for things to change. I just maybe more parks, but I don't want different than what I have, because I moved here because I like it. I like it the way it is. I don't want it to change. And you got all these people in the rest of the community who would say, I would love to live in that neighborhood. I can't afford it. If it had this, if it had better transportation, if it had X, Y, and Z, I could make it work. But we do spend some time talking to those people, but I feel like we spend much less time talking to all the people who wish they could live in those neighborhoods. And we focus heavily on the needs and desires of the people who live there today, who will not be the same people who live there 20, 30 years from now. And these plans are long-term plans, but we're having the people who happen to live there today shape the future of that entire sector or area, even though they will not be the ones who are still living there when that plan comes to fruition. I think that's fundamentally a bad way to do planning. You obviously need to talk to current residents, and their voices are important, but you have to talk to all the people in the rest of our community who, if given a chance, if barriers were reduced, would love to live in Clarendon, in Pentagon City, along Langston Boulevard, and in our single family home neighborhoods that, The people who live there now are like, I don't want anything to change. I like everything how it is today. I'm not looking for new neighbors. And that's not equity in practice.
Definitely. Yeah,
I agree with Callan. That's actually, and I hate to bring up a sore subject, the missing middle. All right, that these people don't want their communities to change, et cetera. So I totally agree with what Callan said.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's part of like why I think Kellen, you suggested making this, right? Because a lot of times, even for site plans, like the people who show up are all the neighbors who live nearby who don't want anything to change, and not the people who could benefit from living in that new building, or from the reduced prices at some other building because everyone else is living in that new building. So, yeah, I think that's really important to kind of broaden like who do we look at as affected. So yeah, since we are kind of, we'll have 10 minutes left. I think we had a lot of really great things ideas we brought up. I'm just wondering, is it okay if Kellen and I kind of offline try to add things that were mentioned and, and that we took notes on, make sure they're on there and sort of try to like clean it up a little bit and then come back next month and like we can go, in the meantime, we'll send it out. Like you guys can make comments, suggestions, and then next time we can like, continue this conversation and make sure everyone's okay with the recommendations.
Yeah,
Michael?
yeah, I just want to be on record as agreeing with the idea of resident council or that sort of, which as the owner of Serrano. And we are actually doing work that's focused on creating a cadre of resident leaders in the property, but it's more focused on like quality of life things, activities and things like that, improving our engagement connection with residents. And I think, and specifically, honestly, the focus is not to be around property management issues. And so having a separate group, and that as I think about it in a property that may feel weird. But anyhow, that residents have a space to go and say, and the elevator is down again, and whatever, which has never happened at Serrano.
Yeah, Michael, elevators were a big issue at Hunter's Ridge, remember? I mean, that was a really big issue. Okay, I think I'm next and I'll shut up, but your last recommendation, I think we already dealt with it, simplify and provide clear context communication about housing policy engagement. And the thing is, it's got to really be, and that was the last bullet here, we've already talked about it, but really enhance that it's got to be really dummied down. Our civic association gets reviews, site plan review or amendments. It's all technical. We do not know what it is. I wrote a letter to the county and I said, we want the pros and the cons. We want you to list the pros and the cons of this amendment. They still haven't done it. So I'm working with the Civic Federation. They have a planning, they did a planning recommendation and they added it in there. But I really think, this is where, the low income, where, people don't know what these things are. What is the plus and what is the minus of this development? So, thank you.
Katie, I think I might be next. A couple things, Michael, when you were mentioning that, it seems like, this idea of orienting new residents to CAF buildings, I think most people, they have like a new resident packet that they give, the welcoming baskets. Those are getting to be like the standard now. And that could be something either in that or maybe in the resident councils, if we could get them up and running, where a lot of that is also sharing the resources that are available to them in the county, right? Like if I have a problem with schools, what is the name of the principal of the school right by here? Or if I have to, so it could be something in there that's also, talking about housing grants and stuff like that, and how to how to participate. I could see those being incorporated there as well. And when someone was mentioning, I think Joe, that was you saying, oh geez, I lost my train of thought. I don't know if it was you actually. Someone's just about how the immediate people who come to those meetings, a lot of times they're coming to say, please don't make any change. They're not coming, so perhaps maybe how would we word something around the SPRC as an example, or even a community meeting just to provide the group, the broader neighborhood information about what is happening in their neighborhood, but like have a special effort to, if it's a little bit broader than that, where are the closest CAF buildings, where is there, figure out if there are minority groups, and like be very intentional about finding folks who aren't the first to hear about it, who aren't always available, who, all the people we know who make it to the meetings, right? So I don't know if one of the things we could try to articulate in this document is like, these are the groups, that need special effort to bring them into the process, and how would we kind of make an effort to get folks with those different profiles at an SPRC or at, any kind of meeting, so that they are understanding as well. So.
I know we only have 5 minutes left. I wanted to ask people their thoughts on the Housing Commission one. So as I talk to people in the community about the Housing Commission, and I, hey, I'm chair of that, I usually get like one of two responses. The first response is, oh, wow, that sounds impressive. I don't know anything about the Housing Commission or what it does, but like, wow, that's really cool. Or two, from people who are like more plugged in and engaged, I have no idea what you all are doing. How are you like challenging me to like, how have you actually made housing more affordable in Arlington? Which is hard as a volunteer who's leading a commission that can only advise and not actually like do things. But like, I think what's behind it to me is that no one that I talk to feels like they have a route to influence what we do. And they don't feel connected to the recommendations that we make. They may agree with our recommendations, but they don't feel like they're influencing it, or that we're, in some meaningful way representing their viewpoints. And you could say that the county board appoints us because we have certain viewpoints and they want to hear from us as individuals or what we represent, but they're not looking for us to go back to constituents and, speak for them and engage with them or something. But I do think it would be nice, other than public comment, to have more avenues for the Housing Commission to gather more feedback from the community that influences the recommendations that we make. The challenge being, obviously, we have no money. We have no staff, we can't tell Alex to go do stuff. Like, Alex has a full-time job that he does for the county, and he does this in addition to all the other stuff that he's doing. And his support for our commission, while fantastic, is limited to really facilitating meetings and helping with, communication and things. So given the constraints that we have as a, right, Joe, what could that possibly look like in your guys' view of like, how could we be better at actually making people feel like the Housing Commission represents them and that they have a voice that is heard by the commissioners when we make decisions? Or I shouldn't say decision, when we make recommendations.
Well, what you're saying there also seems even more important in the Tenant Landlord Commission. How few people know that body exists, where they truly could go and bring up an actual issue of their own. I mean, I think maybe that's to be put on here, that, informing the public of these, these arenas where they can go and express a concern or a suggestion or whatever it is, depending on, in general, I think, not knowing about commissions, but certainly if we're talking about trying to empower lower income or minority residents, TLC is just as, if not more important in my mind. So.
Yeah. And yeah, Kellen, I think this is a really important question that we definitely should talk about. but I think this might need a little bit more in-depth discussion than maybe we have time for right now. So I was wondering if we could start thinking about this now, and then next month when we reconvene, then we can discuss it more in depth. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I mean, we only have 1 minute left, so.
Okay. Great. Kiddis, did you have something?
No, by the way, the Arlington County Housing, they have a resource. Let's say, I wasn't even in my dream to have house in Arlington for the last 15 years. When I got Karen and I educate myself with her, that's why I dreamed the housing and I got that. So people, they don't have information that the resource is not in a people mind or in a people house. That's why we have to, I mean, they have to promote or engage with the community, but they have resource. I mean, they have a good resource. I mean, everybody is educated and they have a good communication and kindness to help the people, but the way of the engagement with the community, that's I think we need that bridge. Thank you. By the way, thank you,
That's great.
Karen, what you do for me for the last 6 or 7 months.
Oh, Kadis, thank you so much for also being such a great voice for your community and also sending more and more people. Um, yeah, you are a great voice in your community, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alice.
Congrats.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Yeah. All
Vamos
of
a
you all
ganarla,
are-
kids.
Thank you so much.
All
Thank you,
right.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody. This has been really great. Lots of great ideas. And so our next meeting will be, I think it's November 19th. Alex, is that right?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay, perfect. And that'll be in person at the courthouse?
Yes, in room 220.
Okay.
I'll
Awesome.
be out
So
of
I hope
town for
you all
that,
are.
Katie. Will it be hybrid or no? Do you know?
I think they're all hybrid.
All hybrid
Yes.
now? Okay.
Yep.
All right, I'll try to do that. Okay. Nice to
Awesome.
see everybody.
Thank you. Yeah,
Thank
great work
you.
today. Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a
Take
great
Thank you,
care.
everybody.
night.
God
Thanks.
bless. Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.